I never thought I'd be sitting here telling this story. Honestly, if someone had told me a few years ago that this would be my life, I would have laughed it off. But here I am. My name is Ella Mai, and for a long time, I thought I had it all figured out. I had a stable job as an accountant at a mid-sized firm, a cozy 2-bedroom apartment in the suburbs, and a husband I believed I could grow old with. His name was Mark. We had been married for 10 years, and I truly believed we were solid. Not flashy, not overly romantic maybe, but steady, reliable, and more than anything, we had Sarah, our daughter. That little girl meant the world to me. She was the sunshine in my day, the reason I kept going even when life threw curveballs. Mark and I met back in college. He was that confident business major who could light up a room just by walking in. Always had something clever to say, always laughing. And I was the quiet one. The girl who buried her nose in textbooks and felt more comfortable balancing spreadsheets than holding conversations. But somehow, he noticed me, and against all odds, we just clicked. After college, we settled into adulthood quickly, got married, started our careers, bought a little place, and then came Sarah, 2 years into our marriage. It was like life handed me a neatly wrapped package and said, "Here you go, Ella. Here's your happily ever after." But of course, life doesn't work that way. I remember the exact night everything started unraveling. It was a chilly Tuesday evening in March. Sarah, who had just turned 8, was tucked in bed, her favorite stuffed bunny curled under her arm. Mark and I were sitting at the kitchen table sipping tea. I noticed the way he kept fidgeting with his mug, his fingers tracing the rim again and again. He finally spoke. "Ella, we need to talk." 5 words. That's all it took to make my stomach twist. "What's wrong?" I asked, though part of me already knew. There had been signs, late nights at work, quick conversations ending when I entered the room, a growing silence between us that neither of us bothered to break anymore. Mark looked me straight in the eye and said the words I never expected. "I've met someone else." I sat frozen as if he'd slapped me. My ears rang, my vision blurred. I think I whispered, "What?" Her name was Rebecca, he told me. She worked in his department. They'd been seeing each other for months. "I never meant for it to happen," he said. Like that made it any better. But I think I'm in love with her. Love with someone else. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. The only thought in my head was of Sarah, sleeping peacefully upstairs, oblivious to the fact that her world was about to come crashing down. The next few weeks passed in a haze of paperwork, mediation meetings, and long nights lying awake, staring at the ceiling. We decided to keep things civil for Sarah's sake. I kept the apartment, more for stability than anything, and Mark got the car and the boat, things I never cared much about. We worked out a custody agreement. Sarah would stay primarily with me, but spend weekends and some holidays with her dad. Mark agreed to generous child support and promised to stay involved in Sarah's life. "I know I've hurt you," he said during one of our last mediation sessions, "but I want to do right by Sarah." I just nodded. What else was there to say? He wasn't my husband anymore, but he was still Sarah's father, and for her, I had to push down my own heartbreak and figure out how to co-parent with the man who broke my heart. A year passed, a blur of adjusting to single motherhood, working full-time, and helping Sarah with homework. She had just turned 9 and was thriving, despite the changes. We found our rhythm. Movie nights on Tuesdays, pancakes every Saturday, long walks in the park every Sunday. Then came the wedding invitation. Not for me, of course, but for Sarah. Mark was marrying Rebecca. They had bought a house together. Well, technically, they moved into her house, a 2-story in the nice part of town, with a manicured lawn and a 3-car garage, the kind of house that practically screamed picture-perfect life. The morning of the wedding, I helped Sarah get ready. She wore the pale blue dress we'd picked out together, and I braided her hair just the way she liked it. "Are you sure you're okay with me going, Mom?" she asked, looking at me in the mirror. I smiled at her reflection. "Of course, sweetheart. She's going to be your stepmom. It's important that you two have a good relationship." "But aren't you sad?" I turned her to face me. "Listen to me, Sarah. What happened between your dad and me is grown-up stuff. It has nothing to do with you. I want you to have a good relationship with both your dad and Rebecca. No taking sides, okay?" She hugged me so tightly. "You're the best mom ever." I waved to her from the window as Mark drove off in his new SUV. Then I spent the rest of the day cleaning the apartment and definitely not thinking about the wedding. When Sarah came home that night, she was buzzing with stories about the cake, the fancy decorations, and the massive house where she'd now have her own room. I smiled and listened. I nodded in all the right places, and when she was asleep, I sat on the edge of my bed and cried quietly into a pillow. Still, life moved on. I threw myself into work, focused on Sarah. We built a life, just the two of us, and we were okay. Not perfect, but okay. Then one weekend, Sarah came back from her dad's practically bursting with news. "Mom, guess what?" she beamed, dropping her backpack by the door. "What is it, sweetie?" "Rebecca's pregnant. I'm going to have a little brother or sister." I felt like the floor had shifted beneath me, but I kept my expression neutral. Wow, that's big news. "Yeah, you can already see her belly a little. Dad's super excited. He said we're turning the guest room into a nursery." I nodded, my throat tight. Later that night, as I watched her sleep, I whispered to myself, "Please, don't let this change how they treat her. Don't let my little girl become invisible." A month later, Sarah came home early from what was supposed to be a week-long stay at Mark's. "Rebecca's really sick," she told me, flopping onto the couch. "She keeps throwing up and crying over everything. The smell of Dad's coffee made her cry this morning, and she said my laugh was too loud, so she asked if I could come home early." I smoothed her hair, remembering my own bouts of morning sickness. Pregnancy hormones can make anyone extra sensitive, I reminded myself. I tried to be understanding. I wanted to believe it was just temporary, but something felt off, and soon that off feeling turned into a storm I never saw coming. A couple of weeks after Sarah came home early, Mark pulled up in front of our apartment for another scheduled visit. I stood by the window, watching as Sarah skipped down to his car, her little backpack bouncing behind her. Everything looked normal. Each evening that week, I called to check on her. "Everything's fine, Mom," she'd say with a chipper voice. "Dad ordered pizza. Rebecca's resting. I'm learning to play chess." It all sounded sweet, but when she came home at the end of the visit, I knew something wasn't right. She looked pale. Her energy was gone. There were faint shadows under her eyes, and she moved slower than usual, like she was carrying something heavy in her heart. "Baby, you okay?" I asked, kneeling to help her unpack. "You seem tired." "I'm fine," she said quickly, brushing it off. "Rebecca's just not feeling well, so I've been helping her around the house, like cleaning and stuff. She can't really move around much anymore." She paused, looking up at me like she was searching for approval. "I even learned how to make spaghetti." My heart swelled with a mix of pride and worry. "That's really kind of you, sweetheart," I said, wrapping her in a hug. "You've always been thoughtful." But inside, alarm bells were ringing. We settled back into our usual routine, trying to find that rhythm again, but it didn't last. One evening, my phone rang. It was Mark. "Hey, Ella," he said. His voice was light, too casual. I braced myself. "I need to ask you a favor." "Here it comes." "According to the schedule, Sarah's supposed to be with you for the next month, but I was wondering if she could stay with us instead. She and Rebecca have really been bonding. Sarah's such a help around the house, and I think it'd be great for their relationship." I hesitated. "I'll ask Sarah what she wants," I said, trying to keep my tone even. I handed Sarah the phone, watching her face as Mark spoke. Her smile was small, unsure. Then I heard Mark say, "And guess what, sweetheart? I picked up that new computer game you wanted, the one with the dragons." Sarah turned to me, eyes shining. "Please, Mom, can I go?" What could I say? I wanted her to be happy. If she wanted this, I'd let her try. "Of course, sweetie, if that's what you want." For 2 weeks, I received updates. Photos of her cooking in their modern kitchen, playing her game, lounging in their perfectly staged living room. Everything looked okay. Almost too okay. There was something off about those photos. A little too posed, a little too perfect. But I pushed the thought away. Maybe I was just being paranoid. Maybe I was letting my own feelings cloud my judgment. And then she came home. When I opened the door, I barely recognized my daughter. Her face was gaunt. Her eyes were sunken. Her whole body sagged with exhaustion. "Sarah," I said, rushing to take her backpack. "Honey, what's going on? You don't look well." "I'm just tired," she whispered, barely lifting her head. "Can I go to bed?" "You don't want dinner?" But she was already shuffling to her room. She didn't even change her clothes, just crawled into bed and was out within seconds. I stood in her doorway, watching her chest rise and fall, and something in me snapped. This wasn't right. I waited until morning, then called Mark. "What's going on at your house?" I demanded. "Oh, here we go," he replied, clearly annoyed. "You're exaggerating again, Ella." "Exaggerating? Mark, have you seen our daughter? She looks like she hasn't slept in days." "She's just been helping Rebecca with a few chores," he said dismissively. "Probably not used to working since someone spoils her at home." The jab stung, but I kept going. "This isn't about me. Something's wrong and you know it." "She's fine," he said again. "Kids today are too soft. A little housework never hurt anyone." I hung up, my hands shaking. That afternoon, when Sarah woke up, I made her favorite meal, chocolate chip pancakes, and sat her down at the kitchen table. "Sweetheart," I said gently, sliding the plate in front of her, "I need you to tell me the truth. What's really going on over there?" She pushed her pancakes around with her fork, avoiding my eyes. For a while, I thought she wouldn't answer. Then her voice came, so small I almost missed it. "Rebecca doesn't really do anything anymore," she said. "She says she can't because of the baby, but she makes me do everything. I have to clean the whole house. I vacuum, I mop, I dust, and I have to cook, too." She looked up, tears brimming in her eyes. "She makes me cut vegetables and use the stove, even though it scares me." I clenched my fists under the table, trying to keep my voice calm. "What about relaxing, watching TV, playing your game?" "I tried once," she whispered, "but she said the noise gave her a headache. She turned off the TV and told me to go to my room. She said my laugh was too loud, that I walked too heavy." That was it. I didn't wait. I grabbed my phone and dialed Mark again. "Why is our daughter being treated like a maid in your house?" I asked, barely able to keep my voice steady. "She's exaggerating," he said coldly. "Rebecca asked for a little help, that's all. She's scared to use the stove. She's 12, Mark. This isn't help. This is abuse." He hung up. 2 days later, my phone rang again. It was Sarah's school. "Mrs. May," her teacher said gently, "I wanted to speak to you about Sarah. Her grades have dropped sharply. She's been falling asleep in class. Homework is late. She seems overwhelmed." I closed my eyes, holding back tears. "Thank you for letting me know," I said. "I'm handling it." I tried calling Mark again. Voicemail. I texted, "We need to talk about Sarah. She's not okay. Call me." He read the message but didn't respond. Not that day, not that week, not the next. And then finally the day came. Mark showed up at our door for his visitation. "She's not going," I said, blocking the doorway. "What?" he growled. "We have a custody agreement." "Her teacher's concerned. She's exhausted. This isn't healthy, Mark." He pushed past me into the apartment. "Don't do this," he hissed. "You're trying to keep her from me." "Go ahead. Take me to court. I'd love to explain to a judge how your pregnant wife is treating our daughter like a full-time maid." Then I saw Sarah standing in the hallway, her backpack half-zipped, looking between us. Mark's tone shifted instantly. "Hey, princess," he said softly. "Come on, get your things. No more chores, I promise. I just miss you." I pulled Sarah aside. I knelt down and whispered, "Take your phone with you. Turn on the voice recorder app. Record everything. Don't let them know. It's just between us, okay?" She nodded slowly, eyes wide. I squeezed her hand. "You're brave," I whispered. "So brave." That week was torture. Each time my phone buzzed, my heart raced, but Sarah's texts were short. "I'm okay, everything's fine." Still, I knew something wasn't fine. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I was just finishing up folding laundry when I heard the chime. I walked to the door, not thinking much of it, until I opened it and saw Sarah standing there. She was soaking wet. Her hair clung to her face, her coat dripping, her backpack hanging loosely from one shoulder. And she was alone. "Sarah?" I gasped, pulling her inside. "Oh my God, what happened? How did you get here?" "I ran away," she whispered, her voice cracked and raw. "I took the bus." My heart shattered. Her hands were red and raw, her fingers chapped, tiny calluses forming on her palms. She could barely walk without wincing. I noticed her shoes were worn at the heels, soaked through. "First things first," I said, trying not to panic. "Let's get you warm." I wrapped her in dry clothes and settled her on the couch under a blanket. Then I made her favorite comfort food, grilled cheese and tomato soup, and watched as she inhaled it. She didn't speak much, just ate like someone who hadn't felt safe in a long time. Once she finished, I sat beside her and brushed the hair from her face. "What happened, baby?" I asked softly. She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. Her hands were still trembling as she handed it to me. "The recordings," she said. "Listen." I opened the voice recorder app and pressed play. At first, all I heard was static and footsteps, then her voice. "I'm trying my best." And then came Rebecca's voice, sharp and mean. "Your best isn't good enough. Look at these floors. I can still see spots everywhere. Do it again." Another clip. "When you're done, there's laundry to fold and dinner to start. But I'm scared of using the stove." "Get out of my sight. Just go. You're useless." My hands trembled as I skipped through the next recording. Rebecca's voice came through again. "You think you're special? Wait until my baby comes. Then you'll really see what work means. You're just a free babysitter. That's all you'll be. Then the one that made my blood run cold. Sarah's voice pleading, "Dad, please. Rebecca's making me do everything. I'm so tired." And Mark's voice, low and cold. "Stop lying. You're just lazy. Do you know how much money I pay your mother? The least you can do is help around the house." "But Dad—" "Listen to me carefully," he said, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. "If you tell your mother about any of this, I'll take her to court. I'll get full custody. You'll never see her again. Do you understand?" I set the phone down and turned to Sarah. She was curled up beside me, her knees to her chest, staring blankly at the wall. "I won't let them hurt you anymore," I said, pulling her close. "You're safe now, baby. I promise." After she calmed down, I picked up the phone and called my sister, Amy. "I need a favor," I said. She didn't even ask questions, just told me she'd be there in 15 minutes. We drove straight to Mark's house. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly I thought it might crack in two. The rain slammed against the windshield, and my heart was thudding in my ears. When we pulled up, I jabbed the doorbell again and again until the door flew open. Mark stood there, face twisted in irritation. "What the hell are you—" I pushed past him into the foyer. "Where is she?" he demanded, slamming the door behind me. "Sarah ran away," I said, turning to face him. "She's safe, but I know what's been happening in this house. This is your fault." "My fault?" He laughed bitterly. "You spoiled her. You've always let her do whatever she wants." Rebecca appeared behind him, one hand resting dramatically on her pregnant belly. She looked at me like I was dirt under her shoe. "You're turning her against us," she added, her voice full of condescension. "She's becoming impossible." "She's 12, I snapped, "and you've turned her into your maid." Rebecca smirked. "She has quite the imagination." I pulled out Sarah's phone and pressed play. Rebecca's voice echoed through the room. "You stupid, clumsy girl. Can't you do anything right?" Their faces froze. I played another, then another. Rebecca's berating, Mark's threats. Rebecca's eyes widened. Mark's face turned red with rage. "You think this changes anything?" he spat. "I have lawyers, the best. They'll tear you apart in court." Then Rebecca started crying. "You're stressing me out," she sobbed. "You're hurting me and my baby." I looked at her, feeling eerily calm. "If you want to raise a maid, do it with your own child, not mine." I turned back to Mark. "You know what's sad? Not that you left me. I've moved on. What's pathetic is how you failed your daughter. You let someone abuse her under your own roof and did nothing. Worse, you helped." I didn't wait for a response. I walked out, the rain soaking my shoulders, but I didn't care. Sarah was waiting at home, and she was the only thing that mattered now. The next morning I called a lawyer, Linda Stevenson, a fierce, no-nonsense family attorney who came highly recommended. The legal battle that followed was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Mark's lawyers were vicious. They painted me as a bitter ex-wife out for revenge. They claimed I was poisoning Sarah's mind, that I refused to let her bond with her new family, that I was jealous. But then we played the recordings in court. I watched the judge's face darken as Rebecca's voice filled the courtroom. I watched the jury squirm as Mark threatened Sarah. And I watched my daughter, sitting bravely in the witness stand, telling her story with a soft but steady voice. She talked about scrubbing floors, about crying in the guest room because Rebecca told her she laughed too loud. She described how scared she was of the stove, how she burned her finger once while boiling pasta alone, and she told them how her dad refused to believe her. More than one jury member wiped away tears. The verdict came swiftly. Full custody was granted to me. Mark lost all visitation rights unless I approved them. He still had to pay child support, but that was it. When we left the courthouse, Mark caught up to me outside. "Happy now?" he hissed. "You got what you wanted." I looked at him without a hint of emotion. "This was never about you," I said. "It was about our daughter, and you failed her." That was the last time we ever spoke. In the months that followed the custody ruling, peace slowly returned to our lives. Sarah's grades started climbing again. She wasn't falling asleep in class anymore. Her teacher sent me a note 2 weeks after the verdict. "Sarah seems lighter somehow, like a weight's been lifted off her shoulders." And it had. She was no longer carrying someone else's burden. At home, we found joy in the simplest things. We brought back our old traditions, pancakes on Saturdays, movie nights with popcorn and fuzzy socks. We even made up new ones. On Friday nights, we started a ritual called Cozy Couch Hour. We'd each pick one silly YouTube video to watch together, and we'd laugh until our sides ached. But most of all, her laughter came back, that beautiful, uninhibited laugh that once annoyed Rebecca to no end. Now it echoed through every corner of our apartment like music. We didn't have a big house or shiny cars, no yachts or manicured lawns, but we had peace, we had each other. And honestly, that was worth more than anything else in the world. I never heard from Mark again directly. A few months after the trial, I received a couple of half-hearted texts from him. "I'd like to see Sarah. Maybe take her to dinner? She deserves to know her brother." But I never replied. I didn't need to. Sarah had the right to decide when or if she wanted that relationship again. And for a long time, she didn't bring him up at all. When she did, it was in passing, brief, emotionless mentions. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard Rebecca gave birth to a boy. They named him Ethan. Apparently, things weren't quite so picture-perfect anymore. Mark was stressed, the baby cried constantly, and Rebecca's attitude hadn't changed. Several friends had pulled away from them. Even Mark's family, who had once been so cold toward me, now sent Sarah birthday cards and gifts with kind notes. They never once asked to see her through Mark and Rebecca. Maybe they saw the truth too. Sarah turned 14 this year. One afternoon, I walked by her room and overheard her talking on the phone with her best friend. "Don't you miss your dad?" the friend asked. Sarah paused for a moment. "Sometimes," she said softly, "but not seeing him is better than feeling worthless every time I'm there." She laughed then. "Besides, I've got the best mom ever." I stood outside her door, hand on my chest, tears in my eyes. I didn't need her to know I'd heard that. It was enough to feel it. And the thing is, I never set out to be some kind of warrior. I wasn't trying to be brave or strong. I was just a mom trying to protect her daughter. But that's the thing about motherhood. It pushes you into strength, whether you feel ready or not. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, worrying I wasn't doing enough, wasn't saying the right things, wasn't being the kind of anchor Sarah needed. But every morning I got up. I made her breakfast. I packed her lunch. I listened to her stories. And that, in the end, is what saved us. Now, when people ask me how I did it, how I got through the betrayal, the custody battle, the lies, I tell them the truth. You just do it. Because when your child is hurting, nothing else matters. Not your pride, not your fear, not even your heartbreak. What matters is being the safe place they can run to no matter what. Sarah's room still has a picture of her and her dad from when she was 5. She hasn't taken it down, and I've never asked her to. That was a moment in her life that was real to her. And maybe one day, she'll want to reconnect. But it will be on her terms, not his. One morning while we were having breakfast, banana waffles, our new favorite, Sarah looked up at me and said, "You know, I think the best part of my life is just being home with you." And in that moment, all the years of pain and struggle melted into something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Real bone-deep peace. It's funny. I used to think a happy ending meant a perfect family, 2 parents, a white picket fence. But now, I know better. Sometimes the real happy ending is a home filled with laughter, a daughter who feels safe, a mother who found her voice. It's Saturday morning as I write this, and Sarah's in the kitchen flipping pancakes. I can hear music playing from her phone, and she's humming along, slightly off-key but completely free. And me? I'm sitting here with a warm cup of coffee, a heart full of gratitude, and a future that finally feels like ours. We made it. We're okay. More than okay. We're whole.